Why don't people honk their car horns anymore? It's generally accepted in the West that if you honk your car horn, you're either about to crash or you're ready to throw hands. Now, whether or not you actually do want to run the fade, the car horn can be an expression of your frustration. So that it's about as close as you can get to putting those aerobic boxing classes to use without exposing how bad your stand-up is. But over time, there's been a shyness developing around the car horn. Maybe it's because people don't want to risk being tailgated by a guy with a glove box revolver and more abandonment issues than a goth girl's Amazon cart. Or maybe it's as simple as not wanting to seem rude. Either way, it's created a generation of people who let stoplight phone scrollers go unchecked. You don't have to sit through 2 stoplight cycles just so Trevor can find the right soundtrack to mentally rewrite lost arguments. But more and more people are letting it slide because at some point, the meaning behind car horns shifted. What used to be a polite way to bring something to another driver's attention is now treated like the automotive equivalent of slapping someone in the face with a leather glove. But not all car horns communicate the same attitude, and not every car culture receives car horns in the same way. So let's examine that. Let's do a car culture investigation. How did the culture surrounding the car horn change? And why are people taking it so personally?
We can rant if we want to. We can send our best regards, 'cause your friends don't rant, and if they don't rant, then they're not into cars.
Historically, when cars first became available to the public, it was basically the inverse of what it is now. Honking your car horn was not just good manners, it was a form of echolocation for morons. Distracted walking isn't a byproduct of the smartphone. Plenty of people at the turn of the 20th century were caught off guard because they were too busy sweating themselves to the brink of heat stroke, wearing double-breasted 3-piece suits and pork pie hats in the middle of June, and looking down at their, ticker tape.
I say, the price of U.S. hay has gone bamboozled. I must invest in a product that makes magnesium for babies. Word on the Wall Street is now they have a militarized version of lithium suppositories.
Drivers were expected to give a friendly little honk just so pedestrians could know they were coming down the street. And you were rude or inconsiderate if you didn't honk. But that started to change as we got into the 1910s. An electrical engineer named Miller Reese Hutchison patented a car horn he called the klaxon. That was in 1908, and it eventually ended up in the hands of General Motors by 1915. GM slapped it onto every new car they made, and the klaxon replaced the carriage bells of the horse-drawn streetcars of old. And yeah, GM probably overdid it, just ramming the car horn into society dry. Couldn't even get some olive oil on it. But it revolutionized automotive safety at the time, before people were really used to the concept of cars crowding the streets. And yet, the platform with those early klaxon horns was a case of volume and frequency. Not only were they loud, their sound was constant, because people honked all the time. People honked turning. People honked to signal they were going in reverse. People honked at every intersection, on every street, in every neighborhood. People were relentless with it because it was considered part of the discipline of operating a car safely, to the point where you could be fined if you passed an intersection without doing it. And while it might sound excessive, this was before the standardization of traffic lights, traffic signage, and turn signals. You basically had to honk because it was the only way anybody would know what your intentions were. But this created the kind of inner-city noise pollution the world wouldn't hear again until the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Go Birds! And the negative perception was made worse when the boys started coming home from World War I, because the sound of horns was similar to the sound of gas alarms in the trenches. The klaxon basically re-traumatized these guys every day. Coupled with the growing discontent about the amount of noise they made, public outcry got so bad that some cities banned the horns altogether. So the industry had to come up with a solution. And over the years, the klaxon was replaced with more acceptable car horns as urbanization began to take hold and cars became more accepted into the mainstream. Society began to evolve to accommodate the car, and the car evolved to accommodate mainstream acceptance. Cars got turn signals, towns got stoplights, and we got the interstate highway system, and signs all over the place reminding us what we could do and everything we couldn't. Suddenly, we didn't need the car horn to be able to tell other people what our intentions were. The car horn became a vestigial limb. And while it was good to have it just in case, its purpose was adapted for expression rather than acknowledgement. The car horn suddenly became an outlet for our collective aggression. You really start to get this sense in the 1960s. As researchers started looking into the cultural effects of the car horn. A study from 1968 noted that drivers use horns not only to make the frustrator uncomfortable by bombarding him with unpleasant stimuli, but also as a way to reduce tension. It feels good to honk, because it's giving all that underexpressed rage a place to go. Before long, this just became the default for what honking meant. It meant, just go already! But it also meant, get the hell out of my way! It meant, learn how to drive, moron! Or, look where you're going, Grandma! It meant, well, I didn't make the cut for the Philadelphia Orchestra, but I have an imported Renault, so let me know how good I am on French horn. It meant, I will send you back up your father's urethra and give your email to a diploma mill. And this is where the cultural shift really starts. Because honking became so synonymous with aggression, people became afraid of doing it for fear of seeming like a jerk, which causes greater offense when they end up getting honked at because, wait, I was being polite and I didn't honk at you when I should have, and now you're honking at me? But the bigger reason I think people became more hesitant to honk was the increase in violent traffic incidents, with the term road rage being coined by newscasters in the 1980s and becoming more widespread in the 1990s as more highway crash-outs became national news. The AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety went over police records from across the country and found that between 1990 and 1996, there were over 1,250 documented incidents of road rage in the United States, with many resulting in either serious injury or death. Road rage shootings have increased by damn near 450% in the last decade, and a study from January of this year, 2025, found that 96% of people witness road rage within a 6-month period. So why does this happen? Well, being in a car is like being behind a computer screen. You are obscure, anonymous in a way that insulates you from direct criticism and attack. And so for some, honking a horn is the equivalent of leaving a nasty troll comment that you'd never say to a person's face. It's the expression of frustration and impatience, yes, but it's also an outlet for undiluted rage, and the person expressing it feels safe to do so, precisely because they're operating an instrument that's large enough to make them feel powerful. And the fear of being confronted by that sort of rage is what prevents honking in the first place. Honking has become a revolver in a game of Russian roulette. You don't want to spin that figurative chamber and end up on the receiving end of a literal 22. When you honk, you never know if today is going to be the day that you've honked away somebody's last nerve, the nerve that was keeping them out of prison. Even if it's not a long honk where you're just standing on the horn, but just a short beep. People with poor emotional regulation don't really differentiate between the two when they're on the receiving end. A short beep might as well be a long honk for how it sends them flying off the handle. But while every country on Earth uses car horns for aggressive purposes, some countries have more nuanced uses that you only really pick up on if you're local. A 5-year study published in 2011 found that in Italy, for example, horns are used to express feelings in the moment without necessarily intending anything negative. A report on habits in India notes that skilled drivers generally aren't angry when they use them. They're simply using skiing etiquette and whatever they meant by that. I ski a lot and I don't know what a horn honk has to do with skiing etiquette. Even when I ski and I'm in a high traffic run, I don't really say on your right or on your left because skiing is generally loud. Like, you think skiing is quiet, it's really, really not. You have the 2-stroke engines and the 4-stroke engines of ski patrol snowmobiles running around. You have the sound of ski lifts. You have the sound of the wind, and then you have the sound of the skis themselves making this white noise that kind of drowns everything out. So I don't know what they mean by skiing etiquette. Anyway, in Egypt, it was found that some people install louder horns when they buy a new car, and that honking is a language made up of intricate yet unwritten code. That can mean anything from open your eyes to let me pass to hello beautiful and even here comes the bride. In Iraq, some people honk to say hello, while others use it as a farewell as they leave, which we do in the United States. Honk honk, see you later, bye. People do it all the time. And just like here, the honk honk in Thailand can mean I'm here, as in I've arrived. In Canada, though, honk honk can mean move over, or hey, you have a flat tire, or children at play. A study of drivers in South Korea found that most are usually reluctant to use their horn entirely, and that they would only honk briefly and only out of absolute necessity. In some regions, horn use is strictly regulated. In Germany, car horns are limited to being used as warnings of road hazards and other immediate dangers, while horn use is illegal in France between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. UK law forbids the use of car horns while the car is stationary, except when in danger. And from what we could find, it seems that in Spain, you can be fined for unnecessarily or excessive horn usage. Ditto in Switzerland, where you're restricted to using your horn only to warn others of danger. In this sense, the car horn reclaims some of its original purpose, becoming less of a tool for people working through their divorce on I-95 and more about the communal recognition that it's up to us to keep each other safe. For example, EVs are really quiet, and while some will have those fake spaceship sounds to let people know they're coming, not everybody hears it. There are kinds of cases where a polite horn might work, or if someone has a flat tire or an open fuel door, then maybe that's a situation where you can give a sort of heads-up honk. Not every instance of honking is about calling out bad driving. Sometimes it's just about keeping an eye out for your fellow motorist. But that doesn't mean drivers are obligated to honk. This is more about drivers picking their battles. Maybe you don't honk at the guy who takes too long at the traffic light, but then maybe you do honk at the guy who's drifting into another lane because he's clearly on his phone. There's a utility in using the horn to keep each other accountable. Of course, every jurisdiction regulates car horns differently, so do your research so you don't end up with a fine. But ultimately, if you're really stressed out about using your horn because you're worried about the potential of someone to react negatively, then I'm not going to tell you that you have to. Maybe the hesitation to honk puts the safety of the individual ahead of the safety of the community. But you know what? You deserve to make it home safe, and you shouldn't feel forced to do anything that you feel is going to put you or your passengers at risk. Sometimes it's best just to let it go and avoid escalation. But just know that the horn isn't the problem. The perception of the horn is the problem. And, I'm not sure if it's even possible to reframe the perception to where people aren't offended by it. It all comes down to the person being mature enough to not let it turn them into somebody who makes life hard for a defense attorney. The car horn is a valuable tool for accountability, like the firm, even tone of a teacher who knows you know better. But what does need to change is how we use our car horn and how we receive it culturally, not whether we use it at all. Hello, you've reached the end of the video. I'm proud of you. If you come this far, I know you want to go farther. RCR's Patreon has tons of more content and all the stuff that I can't get away with on YouTube anymore. It's fun, it's bawdy, and it's extra dirty. And for $1, you get all of it. That's it. Less than the cost of a Costco hot dog. $1, you get double the content. You know what else? If everybody who watched this video joined our Patreon, RCR would be unstoppable. There's no telling what we could do with your support. So please, go to the Patreon, join it. It's only $1. Thank you so much, and thank you for liking Regular Car Reviews.
We don't honk anymore. We don't honk anymore. We don't honk anymore like we used to do. We don't honk anymore. Remember what it was for. We don't honk anymore like we used to do.